Sonic the Hedgehog 3! Ah, damn it. Hang on. Sonic the Hedgehog 3. I've been waiting for a long time to make a video about this movie. Last year, I waited so long for even the tiniest scrap of official information from Paramount until finally, on August 27th, the wait paid off with the first trailer and oh my gosh. I didn't think it was possible for a robot bussy to quiver, but it did. To say I was excited would be an understatement. I mean, I'm a longtime Sonic fan and I'm getting a new movie in a franchise I happen to enjoy, but now it features Shadow the Hedgehog, Maria Robotnik, and in a directional shift even I didn't see coming, Gerald Robotnik in the saggy flesh and, you know, not painted on the wall of a prison cell somewhere. It seemed like Paramount was getting ready to go all out for this movie with dramatic improvements to the visuals and action, spending more time with the CG characters while still finding ways to keep the human characters meaningfully attached to the plot. And of course, more Toxic Yowie from Stone and Eggman.
Toxic Yowie's the shit.
So the trailer came and went, and since I had nothing better to do, I occupied my time with the recently released Sonic X Shadow Generations until December when the movie finally came out. And as the song says, all I want for Christmas is a traumatized hedgehog. And you know what? I loved it. The people I saw it with loved it, and for the first time in my life, I heard people cheering as the credits rolled. I feel like I need to explain that one to my American friends out there. In my travels, I have seen many a movie all over the UK, but never once have I seen or heard people shouting, screaming, clapping, or kicking the shit out of each other during one. Witnessing people react this way is new to me, but it gave me a warm, fuzzy feeling on the inside. But before I get too deep into that, let's talk about the movie first, starting with the characters and the big draw, Shadow the Hedgehog. Yeah, from the moment this lady said 50 years ago in Sonic 2, we know exactly what was coming before we even got a glimpse of the damn shoes. I truly feel like Shadow was handled well in this film. I was never concerned about his design. His appearance in Sonic 2 was a supersonic reskin, but it had the basic silhouette locked in and he looked good. The designers obviously wanted him to be consistent with what they had done with Sonic in a more realistic setting while honoring his original look. And I think they struck a good balance with the final model. I was worried about who would voice him until it was confirmed that Keanu Reeves had been cast. Keanu has a very distinct voice, and I think it meshed well with the character. The changes to Shadow's origin also added an element of intrigue that's since been lost in the games. Aside from a few minor details that carried over from his game counterparts, this Shadow is a blank slate. We have no idea where he came from. Shadow has no idea where he came from. Did he come from the same place as Sonic, or was he created by the movie equivalent of Black Doom? It hasn't been confirmed yet, and to a degree I hope it never is, so it leaves us with some curiosity about the character. Gerald Robotnik not being tied directly to his creation felt like a stronger move considering this portion of the movie took place in the 70s. In the games, it's easy to dismiss extreme technological advancements and just accept them being there. The games never felt like they were trying to take place in our reality, but the movies do. There's a set timeline and a clear indication that this takes place in our world. There's still fantastical elements, but this is obviously our world, or at the very least, one with similar rules. But changing Shadow meant changing other characters like Gerald and Maria. Just like in the games, Maria is more of a plot device to serve as the driving force behind Shadow's pain and eventual actions, but I'm glad they saw fit to add scenes of the two bonding. The scene in the gun base was really charming and added weight to the moment when the situation turns sour and culminates in Maria's death. And speaking of her death, well done to them for the way it was handled. Even before we knew a sliver of information about this film, I knew wholeheartedly that they were not going to have this kid get blasted. I mean, technically she got blasted, but just shut up. As we all know, in the games, Maria is shot dead by a gun soldier aboard the Ark as she attempts to escape with Shadow. The scene in the movie plays out much the same, except the difference here is that the gun soldier is equipped with a weapon seemingly powered by Shadow's chaos energy, and when the weapon is fired, it hits one of several barrels containing the chaos energy. This causes a huge explosion that kills Maria off screen. What I like about this change is that it can only serve to boost Shadow's guilt over her death due to the energy being a byproduct of his existence. So in a way, this version of Shadow may hate himself just as much, if not more, than he hates humanity. Gerald Robotnik's changes I didn't see as a positive or negative, because if I'm honest, he didn't feel like he was that fleshed out in the games until Shadow the Hedgehog and Shadow Generations came around. I like that this version is just a straight up nasty piece of work after Maria dies. He's goofy, yes, but there are scenes clearly showing that this is just an act he's putting on to manipulate Ivo into doing what he wants. I have some issues with how he's portrayed, but that doesn't come into play until the final act of the movie where he and Ivo fight. It begins with this scene where he goes full mask off.
Oh, Ivo.
You're no Maria.
My problem is that it didn't feel like they committed to this moment in a strong way. We go from what is honestly a dark scene where Gerald tells Ivo he's straight up gonna destroy Earth and allow himself and his grandson to burn with it, to them wrestling with their mustaches and spanking. Don't get me wrong, I don't think Gerald still being goofy spoils these scenes. I just think that they went a bit too far with the goofing when it's possible to do less while still achieving the same goal. Had they fully committed to Gerald's darkness, I think it would have made his remaining scenes more intense and his eventual death at the hands of Ivo's ridiculous intervention that much funnier. But ultimately, I enjoyed his inclusion to the story, and I had a lot of fun when he was on screen. You could argue that this movie featured a bit too much Jim Carrey, and honestly, yeah, I get where you're coming from. There's no but there, like, I just get where you're coming from. Other human characters such as Tom, Maddie, Randall, Rachel, and Agent Stone I enjoyed a lot more here too. Tom was clearly being portrayed as Sonic's Maria, and throughout the film there are moments of Sonic questioning who he would have been if he hadn't met Tom and Maddie. Their inclusion in the plot was stronger this time around, as opposed to feeling like they were just interrupting the story in the second film. Randall and Rachel being disguises means that I can't say much for them, but I'll admit it was a clever way to include the characters without including the characters. Agent Stone was given a lot more time to shine here, getting his own action sequence and character arc payoff of Robotnik finally recognizing him as a true friend. Every major human character seemed to get good screen time, and they were included in ways that pushed the story forward. Tom and Maddie, and by proxy Randall and Rachel, were essential to the gun break-in, as well as Tom being important to Sonic's character arc, and Agent Stone was the one who alerted Eggman to his technology being misused, bringing him into the plot, and of course making guac.
Revenge guac.
Overall, I think this was a solid film, and probably the best of the three. There were some parts I didn't care for, or retcons that made little sense, but I wasn't as bothered about them as I thought I would be. The gun retcon was by far the most confusing, since now it appears that Gun has just always existed, even before their apparent creation after the events of San Francisco in Sonic 1. Normally I'd just take this as it is, but when thinking about the lengths that Eggman went to get Sonic's power in the first film, if Shadow's chaos energy had been around since the 70s, then surely he would have known about that, or had access to it given his reputation. A way to fix that would have been to make it apparent that Eggman had always had some kind of energy powering his machines, but it wasn't as refined, with the implication that it wasn't exactly human in origin here and there. I could speculate on this for days, but I think the harsh and boring truth is just that the writers hadn't planned this far ahead, which is fine. It's a bit boring, but fine. Another criticism I have is the removal of some scenes from the film, like the one that revealed how Gerald was able to live over 100 years. Basically, he sucked on Shadow's quill for 50 years and the chaos energy kept him alive. I wish I was making that up. Which honestly would explain why he sucks on it right before engaging in a dance number that probably would have shattered his pelvis at that age. I get that scenes are removed from movies if they don't add to the main story, but this scene alone would have added so much more context and opportunity to old and new stories. For example, Eggman sucking on Sonic's quill in the first and second movies could have been an explanation for his survival here, because that did not look like something a normal person could or would survive. I mean, for God's sake, you cut out the gay one where Stone picks up his crumpled body. You could have at least let that stay. As for newer stories, it would have opened up the possibility to explore the effects of Sonic and Shadow's power on humans. Jeff Fowler described the chaos energy having a revitalizing effect on Gerald that was keeping him alive. Whether that's still the case is up for debate since the scene was removed. But hey, enough of that. Let's talk about movie magic. The animation of each character in Sonic 3 was fantastic. As the saying goes, the eyes are the window to the soul, and there are so many moments in this film where the facial animation is doing insane work. Respect for the voice actors for portraying the emotions of each character, but the animators deserve just as much praise, if not more, for their contribution. This is some of the best looking work in the trilogy, and it's not limited to scenes where the characters are simply talking. That third act was adrenaline pumping because the presentation was fantastic. Watching Shadow launch a dozen Chaos Spears at gun robots while in super form in space with the fate of the Earth hanging in the balance had people in my theater screaming in excitement. I even had a #hit tweet after seeing the movie. In fact, I've had a few hit tweets that were Sonic 3 related. It's weird. You should definitely go follow my Twitter account, just saying. Going back to the atmosphere in that theater though, it was great to hear so many people expressing their hype all at once. And while the cheering was almost deafening during the final battle, the reaction to the post-credit scenes was something else entirely. I swear I'll never forget hearing a dozen kids start shouting and cheering when Metal Sonic warped into view, only for the volume to be doubled when Metal Sonic gets destroyed by Amy. Same for when Shadow was revealed to have survived in the end. For me, this was like an Avengers Endgame moment. I realized not a lot of people out there are going to agree with that, but you have to understand, if you had told me a few years ago that I'd experienced this much excitement for a big budget Sonic movie, let alone the third movie in a trilogy of successful Sonic movies, I wouldn't have believed you at all. So yeah, I liked the movie. Like the others, it has some issues, but if I had to put them in order by how many problems they have, Sonic 3 has much less wrong with it when compared to the previous two, at least as far as I'm concerned. It's been really interesting to see how the film held up after the honeymoon phase ended, and from what I can see, people are still happy with what they got. And that makes me happy, because as a kid, Sonic made me happy, and it does my heart good to see a new generation of people enjoying it. Based on that post-credit scene, I do have a few theories about where the story's gonna go next, but I might save that for a different video, so let me know in the comments if you want to see more videos like this from me and a speculation video about Sonic 4. But yeah, I think I'm done. Bye-bye! Don't let the door hit you on the way out, get out.
Doctor, wait. If I can't rule the world, I might as well save it.